in the heart of a noisy, bustling city, where music was its breath and competition was inevitable. There lived a young violinist named Lyra. When Lyra played alone, her violin sounded as beautiful as an angel's whisper, melodious and profound. But whenever she stood before a crowd, even just a few passers-by, her hands would tremble, her mind in turmoil. She yearned for applause, for admiring gazers, but the fear of judgment and the need for approval stifled her talent. Lyra had tried everything. She played popular tunes she didn't truly love, attempted to mimic the styles of famous artists, and even changed her attire and a underscored speech to hopefully attract attention. She often explained the deep meaning behind each of her notes, trying to convince listeners of her dedication. But each outward-facing effort only left her more exhausted, and her music increasingly lost its authenticity. The slightest criticism would cause her to break down or engage in futile arguments. One bleak afternoon, after a terrible performance that made her want to give up, Lyra wandered into a quiet old alleyway. There she saw an elderly street musician. He wasn't playing a grand instrument, only an old harmonica. The strange thing was, he made no effort to attract attention. He just sat there, eyes half closed, and played simple, rustic melodies that possessed an unusual power to move the soul. Not a word of explanation, not a begging gesture, only music and an astonishing, serene presence. The small crowd that gathered around him was drawn not by noise, but by an invisible charm emanated from his focus and peace. Lyra stood watching in silence for a long time. She didn't understand why, but the image of the old man and his simple harmonica touched something deep within her. She didn't dare to speak to him, but that wordless lesson was etched into her mind. Returning to her small room, Lyra made a decision. She put away the popular sheet music, stopped trying to be someone she was not. She no longer went online seeking words of encouragement or explaining herself to those who didn't understand. Instead, she rediscovered the music that truly resonated with her heart, the melodies that had once been her reason for living. Every day, Lyra practiced with a new discipline, not to prepare for a performance, not to please anyone. She played for herself. She learned to listen to her breath blend with each note. She faced her mistakes not with self-torment, but with the patience to correct them. She focused on controlling every muscle in her hands, every vibration of the strings, and most importantly, she learned to control the waves of emotion within her. Silence became her companion. Many months passed. One day, the city organized a street music festival. Her friends encouraged Lyra to participate. This time, she didn't feel the paralyzing fear of there was a strange sense of peace within her. Lyra stepped out onto a designated street corner without elaborate attire or a flowery introduction. She simply placed the violin on her shoulder, closed her eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and began to play. The melodies that emerged were not meant to impress, but were a part of her soul being set free. Her playing now carried a different power, a sincerity and depth that touched the listeners' hearts. It didn't scream for attention, but gently invited listening. The crowd was initially noisy, but gradually they were captivated by Lyra's absolute focus and serene demeanor. They saw an artist not trying to be loved, but simply living fully with her music. There was no strain, no anxiety, only Lyra and her violin becoming one. When the piece ended, a brief silence hung in the air before applause erupted. This time, the applause didn't bring Lyra the fleeting sense of satisfaction she had once sought. Instead, she felt a genuine connection. Lyra smiled, a gentle and self-possessed smile. She had understood that the greatest recognition came not from the crowd, but from conquering herself. She had found the melody of silence, an inner strength that needed no explanation, because it, in itself, was an eloquent message. She had become a true artist, not by pleasing the world, but by mastering her own inner world.